There are many YouTubes about load development and how to pick the most accurate powder charge. Some of these chart the velocity of 5 to 10 different powder charges going up in a regular sequence and suggest looking for powder nodes. The Hornady Podcast, episode 50 and 52, suggest if these charts are based on small data sets, i.e. 1 round or 2 rounds at each charge, they may not be valid statistically. This is an example of a chart where somebody's plotted the velocity of 10 different loads, all with a incrementally larger powder charge in them, and the suggestion is that beginning section and then the section in the middle there where it's either flat or goes down a little, that there's a powder node there, and that's an area to explore for accurate loads because the cartridge is supposed to be insensitive to the amount of powder in the cartridge around that area. So I needed to develop a new load for my Benchrest rifle because I'm starting to use a new different weight bullet, and decided to, while I was doing that development, collect the data and collect enough data to make it statistically relevant. So the Hornady guys suggested that 15 rounds at least per charge weight was what's required to make it statistically relevant. So that's what I went with. Obviously I'd preferred more, and I would have preferred to have explored more charge weights as well. But if you start to calculate, if you're going to have 5 charge weights like I've got here and 15 rounds per charge weight, then that's 75 rounds just for this one test. And if you're then going to dial in that you've got to have some blow-off rounds and some barrel warmer rounds in between groups, and you've got to allow the barrel to cool down over between groups and so on, that time becomes a real factor in doing these tests, and money. These are the results I got. So the first table you see up there on the left-hand side are the velocities per shot, and then for each of the different powder charges I used 5 powder charges and tried to get 15 rounds per string or powder charge. I did forget to turn the lab radar on for some of them, and just for one, the Lab Radar LX, the new little small one, did fail to pick it up. But anyway, so I think these are statistically relevant, and you can see that the powder charge, I went up 0.3 grains per sample, which is roughly 1%. And you can see that the velocity roughly went up by 1%. So there was a direct relationship here between how much powder I put in and how much the velocity went up. And that also refers, or sort of goes over to the chart, that there's a linear progression in the velocity by the increase in powder going in. So then looking a little bit more at the details, the smallest SD was that first 28.6, and I think that's the smallest extreme spread as well. And if you look further down, you can see the groups. I got the smallest groups average on that one. I was very pleased with the 0.111 inch group. That was fired on a 100 metre range. It's actually, when you measure it through laser rangefinder, it's 104 metre range, which is 114 yards. So that 0.11 inch group was actually 0.098 MOA, which I was one of the best groups I've shot. So, but then as the powder charge went up at that last group, the 29.8, very, very different results there. So I'm going to be focusing on the 28.6. I may even sort of go down a little to 28, maybe go down in 0.2 increments, down to 28.4 and 28.2, and see what it looks like there. But yeah, I certainly won't be going up and looking at the higher charges. Now, so this is what the Hornady people were suggesting would happen, that it's a linear increase when you've got a statistically relevant size data set. But I also looked at a dot plot. So when you're looking at this dot plot, each of the dots, so down at the bottom along the horizontal axis, we've got the powder charge. So the first one, 28.6, 28.9, and so on. And then up along the vertical, we've got the velocity. And each dot on the powder charge represents a shot fired. So that's the individual velocity for each shot that I fired. And you can see on that second one where the SD was quite a bit bigger than all of the others, that there's quite a bit more variation, or there's a larger range in velocities there. Quite interesting to look at it on this dot plot method. But what you can also see, if you look at the 29.2 and 29.5, I think that shows it better. The highest velocity of the 29.2 and the lowest velocity of the 29.5 are almost the same. And even having a look at the highest velocity of all of them compared to the lowest velocity of the next one up, then you're seeing something similar. And this is where I think some of this thought of powder nodes or flat spots where you put more powder in but the velocity doesn't come up comes from. That you shoot a 29.2 and you get one of the higher in the range, and then they shoot one or two rounds of the 29.5 and they get the lower in the range, and that then you join those dots together where you've only shot one or two rounds, and it looks like that there's a flat spot there. But in reality, when you take the average of all of the 29.2s and the average of all of the 29.5s, that there really isn't a flat spot there. In this cartridge for this gun, I'm not saying powder nodes don't exist, but in what the data that I've collected here, I'm not seeing it for this experiment. Now, would I have preferred to have done 10 charges and recorded 15 rounds or 20 rounds or 30 rounds for each charge? Yes, I would. But I was hurried in doing this experiment, and I had 3 hours on the range to get it all done. And I was shooting more quickly than I would have liked to. I didn't let the barrel cool down as much as I would like to. I didn't clean the barrel as many times as I would have liked to. If I were to do it again, I would probably book the range all day, but then that doubles the expense. This whole sort of test, including components and the petrol to get to the range and the range cost sort of £250, which in US dollars, that's about $350. So that's just for the afternoon booking of the range. If I'd done it for the morning and shot more, well, from my point of view, I've always felt that the idea of powder nose, I've always scratched my head a little bit about it, and I've proved to myself that for my cartridge, my gun, and my shooting, that powder nose don't exist. My experience. If somebody can come along and show me a set of data like I've produced, where you've shot 15 rounds per charge or more, and you do see powder nodes, great. I would be a believer. But at the moment, I haven't seen anything like that. I will leave an image at the end of that small group, a bit of a humble brag. But I think that's it for this video. I hope you found it useful. Do leave your comments, and I do wonder if this is going to if I'm going to get a whole load of abuse for producing this, and some people that love powder nodes, love the idea of powder nodes, come along and berate me. That's fine. I'll take it. Let's see what happens. And any suggestions, be happy to read in the comments. Thanks a lot.